They are defunding Planned Parenthood. They are ending tons of Medicaid coverage for 13.7 million Americans, including Affordable Care Act coverage as well. And if you want to get an abortion and have a silver plan on a health care plan that you paid for, you will also be affected by this legislation as well. Also, allowing suppressors on guns to be deregulated to some of the largest amounts that we have seen since the 1930s. This is just a Christmas bill. It's a Christmas tree.
I yield the gentlelady to 30 seconds.
And so I want people to understand, for my Republican colleagues who are sure what is in and not in this bill, in this process that has been this rushed, when you wake up in the morning, you will realize that you voted to defund Planned Parenthood and to take away health care from 13.7 million Americans. And when this country wakes up in the morning...
The MAGA movement is fundamentally built on hypocrisy. The type of hypocrisy that has Republicans saying they're pro-life while cutting Medicaid. The type of hypocrisy that has Republicans saying they back the blue while Donald Trump pardons cop-beating insurrectionists, or that they're making America healthy again while RFK Jr. guts HHS and Donald Trump does away with funding to research treatable diseases. That is a lie that Donald Trump and RFK Jr. somehow care about America's health. And it was called out by Senator John Ossoff, who ripped into RFK Jr.'s lies, and a takedown in front of Congress that we're going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. And it really does mean a lot to me now. Before we get into Senator John Ossoff shredding these lies, I want to start with one. RFK Jr. was most recently caught in, and that was this clip right here.
I'll ask you about something you said when you were on Capitol Hill this week. You were asked about the lead crisis in Milwaukee schools. You told Congress, quote, "We have a team on the ground in Milwaukee." The city said that's not true and that they are still not getting the help that they want from the CDC. Do you know who is on the ground? Who were you under the impression?
The CDC is giving them assistance with their labs, their analytics, and advice.
They just said one technician was on the ground.
I can't tell you how many are on the ground in the city of Milwaukee, but I can tell you we are there.
But you don't know how many?
I can't tell you how many right now.
So, I mean, this is from the Milwaukee Health Commissioner and Senator Tammy Baldwin. Yeah.
You could read my other exchanges with Tammy Baldwin, and anyway, I'm not necessarily believing what Senator Baldwin
So you're
is.
disputing and saying that there are more than one CDC employees
Like I said, we have 62,000 employees. I'm not sure how many we have deployed to Milwaukee. I'm happy to check and give you that information.
And are you committed to helping with the schools there? Because obviously they're having a real issue with this, and say it's really affecting the students.
Of course, I've been working on lead in the schools including in Milwaukee, for 40 years. It is a crisis in our country. 44% of black youth in our municipalities have dangerous levels of lead in their blood, and that is crippling them for a lifetime potentially. So it's an issue that is foremost on my mind. It's a high priority, and it's something we'll continue to be involved with.
Okay.
Republicans want you to believe that every institution in the government is broken and must be done away with. And that's because they want to shrink the size of government, not because they think it doesn't work. It surely works to serve billionaires like Elon Musk. They want to do it. Of course, so that they can write a bigger tax cut. And so they want you to think that the CDC doesn't work, that the IRS shouldn't be funded, when in fact the IRS needs funding to go after billionaire tax cheats. But this is a perfect example, attacking the CDC, because Republicans hate Fauci now that there's lead in the water in Milwaukee, and nothing can be done about it. Because of the incompetence of this administration that does not make anyone healthy. These cuts don't make anyone healthy. And that is exactly what John Ossoff called out, grilling one of Donald Trump's stooges over his lies protecting RFK Jr. And we can see that right here.
You were asked on April 17th whether any of the personnel reductions had included personnel responsible for food safety or infant formula safety. You said, quote, there were no cuts to scientists or reviewers or inspectors, absolutely none. You were asked on April 23rd on CNN and said, quote, again, there were no cuts to scientists or inspectors. But then just 2 days later, an HHS spokesperson confirmed that, in fact, scientists had been fired and that you were scrambling to rehire them. Is that, did you in fact say on April 23rd there were no cuts to scientists or inspectors? Just before we get into the details, is that an accurate quote?
No scientific reviewer was cut as a part of the reduction in force.
But you said there were no cuts to scientists or inspectors. Didn't you say that?
My understanding was that there were no cuts to the scientific staff, but specifically the scientific reviewers is what I was referring to.
But you said there were, Jim
Jones,
it's a very straightforward question.
economist.
You said there were no cuts to scientists or inspectors, correct?
Scientific reviewers
No,
is
you
what I was
said-
referring to. That's the vast majority of scientists there.
And
Jim Jones
then
is an economist.
5 days before you had said there were no cuts to scientists. You said that, right?
I was referring to scientific reviewers. There are
But scientists had been fired, correct?
There have been research scientists in some labs that have been doing some research. Some of that research is good, some of it is not good, and so there have been no cuts to scientific reviewers.
And in fact, scientists who study the safety of infant formula had been fired, correct?
I'm not aware of any scientist who studies infant formula that has.
Here's the reporting in the New York Times, which says the HHS spokesman said those employees called back had been inadvertently fired, and the decision to rehire specialists on outbreaks of food-related illnesses and those who study the safety of products like infant formula. So, is this reporting accurate? Had, in fact, scientists who study outbreaks of food-related illnesses and the safety of infant formula been fired?
The reason it's not accurate, Senator, is that people were not fired. They were scheduled for the reduction in force. And that was before I got there. When I got there, we did an assessment. And so some of those individuals out of the 19,000 were restored. Jim Jones was an economist, and he was upset about the Doge cuts, so he self-doged. He was not fired. I wish he would have stayed.
Have all scientists responsible for food safety and infant formula safety been rehired or reinstated?
Look, we have not reduced in force the scientific review staff. I know where you're going with this. We're not allowed.
I'm trying to get clarity on your statement. You said there were no cuts to scientists, and then the HHS spokesperson said, actually, there were cuts to scientists, and now we're trying to rehire them. I mean, so it gives the impression you're not sure about the personnel actions ongoing in your own agency, and that's
again, no one was
from your testimony today.
No one was cut in the reduction of force. They were scheduled for the reduction in the future. Down the road, it has not happened yet. So the people scheduled to be cut, we did a review and found some research scientists. When I made those statements, it was very specific. I was very clear. We're talking about scientific reviewers because the trains have to run on time. And if you're concerned about
my time is up. My time is up. You were very specific. You said there were no cuts to scientists, and then 5 days later, there were no cuts to scientists. Those are your direct quotes. There were no cuts to scientists, but there were cuts to scientists.
No, there were no cuts to scientists because people were scheduled for the reduction in force down in the future, and the people scheduled were reevaluated, and we restored a couple research scientists, and I was referring not only to them, but to
how many?
To the scientific reviewers.
How many scientists responsible for preventing outbreaks of food-related illnesses and the safety of infant formula have been restored or reinstated?
There were no scientists that were in charge of preventing outbreaks that were part
I didn't
of the
say
reduction.
in charge.
But I mean, this is the problem in government. Somebody has a fancy-sounding name like infant formula safety, and no one can ever touch them, even if they're not doing their job.
Okay, I'll tell you what, how about this?
Redundant.
I'll send you, so that you can get accurate information to the committee, I'll send you some very detailed questions about this, and you'll respond in full, yes?
Yes, just keep in mind the agency was half its size in 2007. We didn't have
But you'll
outbreaks
respond in
and
full.
rampages and food outbreaks.
Well, we had a huge infant formula safety crisis in this country just a few years ago. Do you recall that?
That was because of several problems, including...
So you will respond in full to the questions that I send you.
I'm always happy to respond in full.
Thank you
to
so much,
Senator.
Dr. McCarthy.
I consistently say this about the Republican Party, and I think it's just important to reiterate as frequently as possible. These aren't smart people. They are fundamentally stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're doing. That's all really part of it. Donald Trump doesn't want a competent administration because, as we always say, this is an administration with the sole purpose of, as Russ Vaught said, making federal workers feel traumatized. They want them to quit. They want them to leave their jobs. They want them to be bad at their jobs. They want government to break again. That all makes it easier for Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Mike Johnson to gut the government. That is what they want to do. So they'll lie about the funding cuts. They'll lie about gutting research opportunities, firing scientists working on the most impactful breakthroughs we may have ever seen in medical science. They'll do that all just to hurt the government very much on purpose. That's the point of this all. And then they'll try to lie about it, which they're not good at doing. As Senator Ossoff pointed out, those conflicting ideas being put out of the FDA and HHS about who was fired and who wasn't, they don't know what they're doing. They're not very good at it. The cruelty is the point, but sometimes the cruelty just comes from incompetence. Other times, it's very specific. Where it's very specific is in these most recent cuts to Medicaid, and AOC called those out right here.
13.7 million Americans. 13.7 million Americans are the number of people in this country whose health care are going to be stripped in this bill. Now, Republicans are going to try to tell you every single distraction in the book from that essential number. I want people at home to understand that Medicaid and the federal matching funds for Medicaid can make up 30 to 40% of some of the state budgets that we have going on back in your home. Republicans have put this bill together, rushed it together in a matter of hours on the back of a napkin, shaking it, walking out of the White House, and brought it right here to this floor. They are defunding Planned Parenthood. They are ending tons of Medicaid coverage for 13.7 million Americans, including Affordable Care Act coverage as well. And if you want to get an abortion and have a silver plan on a health care plan that you paid for, you will also be affected by this legislation as well. Also, allowing suppressors on guns to be deregulated to some of the largest amounts that we have seen since the 1930s. This is just a Christmas bill. It's a Christmas tree.
I yield the gentlelady additional 30 seconds.
And so I want people to understand, for my Republican colleagues who are sure what is in and not in this bill, in this process that has been this rushed, when you wake up in the morning, you will realize that you voted to defund Planned Parenthood and to take away health care from 13.7 million Americans. And when this country wakes up in the morning, there will be consequences to pay for this. And I yield back.
The Trump administration is explicitly looking to harm people. They want to make our lives worse. That's what this bill is about. That's very clear. That's what Donald Trump's budget seeks to do. They're not trying to hide it anymore. Control is above all what they are seeking to do, and that can be laid out and seen in so many aspects of this administration. But one that, of course, I think is not only just because it's in the news, but because it does speak to all of these issues of Donald Trump's attempt, at least in his claims to care about making America healthy or bringing jobs back or succeeding or having expertise. His attack on Harvard and in other colleges shows exactly why this isn't true, but he spoke about that in a way that has to be called out. This administration is about cutting off who has access to power, who has access to what should make America the greatest country in the world. But we're losing that under this administration, and we have to call that out. I'm certainly going to be on this show, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.